Exactly 21 minutes past 11 in the evening here in Moscow. Now, there's a new story in to tell you about. There were chaotic scenes in Montenegro's parliament Friday as 18 lawmakers were arrested after attempting to disrupt a vote on religious freedoms. On one side, the pro-Serb opponents of the law, which was still successfully passed, believe it could allow the state to seize hundreds of religious buildings. Further, they argue the legislation forms part of a concerted attempt, they say, to undermine the Serbian Orthodox Church, which has many adherents over in Montenegro, and promote Montenegro's own Orthodox Church instead. So a real set of battles going on here. Bottles were being thrown as proceedings took place, and some opposition lawmakers tried to assail the speaker too. The country's Prime Minister condemned the violence and stressed the need for constructive discussion about religious rights.
I have given guarantees and assurances that this law does not have any hidden agenda, that it is a law any civilized and democratic society needs, that it does not endanger any Montenegrin metropolitanate or any religious facility governed by the Montenegrin metropolitanate, nor questions the status of any priest. What we altogether emphasized is that dialogue is necessary, that we have had dialogue so far, but in their estimation, insufficient.
We have not had that true dialogue so far, and we are now asking that some parts of this law that are formulated as they are now, which absolutely do not bring peace to Montenegro but anxiety and unhappiness among people, and what the government should do is to postpone the suggested law or some parts until after Christmas. Let's not quarrel around Christmas.
Well, critics of the newly adopted legislation rallied near the Parliament building in the capital Podgorica ahead of the vote. 7 out of 10 people in Montenegro are reportedly Serbian Orthodox, and the church's influence hasn't declined since Montenegro split from its neighbour in 2006 either. It has dozens of churches and monasteries across this small Balkan republic which could be affected by this law. It's complicated, isn't it? Well, there was criticism of the move in Serbia, with protests taking place outside a Montenegrin embassy in Belgrade in solidarity with the lawmakers, 2 of whom are still in detention, and in the Serbian parliament, 2 tensions frayed as well. All right, let's try and untangle this a bit. Marko Gasic, the international affairs commentator, is on the line, well versed up with this one. Hey there. Where do you start here? It's a kind of a land grab. It's a political dispute between 2 sides. It's a church dispute between 2 sides. First off, why are Serbian Orthodox adherents so upset by this new law? I suppose it goes without saying, but is it as bad as they say? What's really going on here?
Well, really what's going on is that a bunch of politicians at the top of the political tree in the ways that they've arrived there have taken it upon themselves to attack their ideological rival, which happens to be the church of that country, by creating their own one. Imagine if Boris Johnson created a London Protestant church to replace the Church of England. I don't think anyone would be very happy. Or if Catholics in Northern Ireland had their property taken, their churches taken away and given to the Protestants, or Protestants had their churches away and given to the Catholics. That's the kind of level this is on. And what right do politicians have to make decisions regarding the future of a church which has been on that territory forever?
Is the church being dragged into this unwillingly? How's it got to this? And how long has it been going on?
Absolutely. I mean, this is all part of a kind of 25-year campaign by this excessively long-staying leader of Montenegro, Milo Djukanovic, who's been trying to change the Montenegrin identity by force to remove that double identity of being both Serbian and Montenegrin, which has characterized the population of Montenegro. He's been pretty successful so far with all the methods at his disposal, and this is simply the next step. It parallels what went on in Ukraine a year ago, where a phantom Ukrainian church replaced the Russian Orthodox one there. And again here, a phantom Montenegrin church is being designed to replace the actual Orthodox church that is on the territory of Montenegro. And I repeat, has been there pretty much forever since Christianity arrived on these shores, with the blessing of all previous Montenegrin governments, leaders and people.
And how bad could this get? One bishop's warning it could cause, quote, civil war. Does he actually mean that?
Well, it's why priests and nuns and monks are on the streets for the first time in their lives. This is really an attempt to leave them without a home, to make priests and nuns and bishops squatters in their own churches, in their own monasteries, because now a bureaucrat in the central capital will decide who it belongs to. Those people have suddenly been told it's not theirs. The politicians are telling them without the benefit of any right whatsoever. This is absolutely scandalous, and if it succeeds here, it's a very bad lesson to the rest of the world in terms of religious freedom. This is the heart of Europe we're talking about, and the EU is entirely silent. Indeed, the British government also is entirely silent. Those people who really would be shouting to the rooftops about the freedom of religious communities in places like China or Russia are utterly silent.
Yeah, I mean, you said this has been going on for 2.5 decades, but when's it really ramped up? Just recently?
Well, recently, yeah, because I mean, Djukanovic, the president, has always looked on anything that has the word Serbian in it as it were, the natural antidote to his attempt to present Montenegro as a narrow, bigoted, nationalist state with no previous existence as part of anything else. Whereas, in fact, the Montenegrins historically have been the same people as the Serbians. They are the closest people in the region to each other, and their relationship has always been brilliant. He's now artificially trying to draw a jagged line in the heart of the relationship between Serbians and the people of Montenegro, which really is an artificial cut wielded by him. And it's something that we should all oppose. For the freedom of all faith communities in the world, we should protect them from political interference designed to destroy their church, which is what's happening here.
The caveat to this, and this law says that the church has to prove that it had this property prior to 1918, when Montenegro lost its independence. How are they going to do that? That's where they've got to produce deeds, etc.
Exactly. Who are the politicians, this political party, who are they to decide what the church should be doing? If Boris Johnson tried to, or Jeremy Corbyn, or whoever, tried to tell the Church of England they had to prove their existence, or they'd have their Westminster Abbey taken away from them, I think we'd all find it absolutely abhorrent. And that's what this little tin pot dictator, Djukanovic, is trying to do in Montenegro. As I say, as a lesson for the world, it's one that we should step on straight away. And those who care about religious freedoms should be very concerned about what this dictator is.
Obviously, be careful with your words there. So, do you believe any property actually will be seized or not here at the end of the day?
First, I will correct it. He's not a dictator, except he's trying to dictate, and he's increasingly trying to turn this into his own power fiefdom. So he's really trying to take on the trappings of a dictator, even if he hasn't got there yet. And we need to stop him getting there, because really it's not a good lesson for democracy when these kind of things are allowed to happen.
Unfortunately, we haven't got the other side to put their point of view here. But do you believe, anyway, property is going to be claimed here in the end? Is it really going to come to that?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the other faith communities in Montenegro are quite convinced that this is not going to have any reach onto them. And this really exposes exactly what's going on here. This is an attack on one particular church because it's deemed by the ruler of Montenegro as not being what he wants to see there. It's a targeted attack on a particular community. It happened to the Jews in Germany. Do we want it to happen again?
Marko, we're going to leave it there. Marko Gasic, International Affairs commentator. We're out of time. Thank you for your time too. And thank you for watching at home. It's 20...